Good morning, it's John Warner here, just to say hello and just a little chat about an upcoming political event here in Germany. It's the election of a new federal president. Hopefully you won't have heard of the federal president who resigned, Köhler. He resigned on the end of May. It was an unusual time to resign. The reason you won't have heard of it is that the federal president doesn't really have a great deal of executive power. It's always described as a position of influence and ceremony. So it's more like the having an elected version of a UK monarch than say having a US or a French style president, where the president has executive power and does things to maintain the system and run the executive. The executive power is held by the Chancellor, in this case Angela Merkel. Anyway, so the federal president resigned, so they have to have an election. It's not a direct election, it's an indirect one. It's a body that's called I think in English the best translation is Federal Convention. It's basically, it meets only to do the job of electing the federal president. It's got the size of it is determined by the size of the Bundestag plus an equal number of people elected by the various federal states of Germany in proportion. So there are 612 members of the Bundestag, so that makes it 1,224 people meet to elect the in the Federal Convention to elect the federal president. It's a fairly shortish procedure in the sense that it's a maximum of 3 ballots. In the first 2 you must receive an absolute majority of the votes. It's on the 3rd they will accept the person with the largest number of votes to be the president. They then have up to 2 days to accept the position. I think first everybody's always accepted straight away, because you're normally, although technically the nomination process takes place inside the Federal Convention, in reality it's the candidates are already clearly lined up and connected with political parties. Anyway, the current candidates when I'm making this video on the 9th of June are Christian Wulff, Joachim Gauck and Lukrezia Jochimsen. Christian Wulff is nominated by the CDU and the FDP. He's the Minister President in Niedersachsen or Lower Saxony, and is interesting in the sense that I don't think Angela Merkel really likes him. So she's getting rid of him from a position of relative power, being the head of state of one of the federal states, to a ceremonial position, and that's interesting to watch what happens. He's a front runner because the FDP and the CDU have a majority of the Bundestag members, and probably the Land, although there's issues around that, whether they'll be able to get that. The second candidate is Joachim Gauck. He's an interesting character because he's a Lutheran pastor who came to prominence during the resistance to the former East German state. He was where the Lutheran Church was the resistance. You weren't allowed to have political parties, or at least they were very neutered, so people formed groups around the church, which was allowed, the Lutheran Church, and he was one of the pastors that was heavily involved in this, and he was a good man in that sense. So he's got a track record there of being opposed to the communists and standing up for the little person. He also was the first commissioner of the Stasi records after the reunification, and that position was he's considered to be, also his credentials were excellent in that. He did it for 10 years, and etc. So he's an interesting person, nominated by the SPD and the Greens. A very interesting man, and interesting to watch, because he can pull people from the CDU and the FDP, because he's of his qualities. Angela Merkel this year even praised him greatly, even though she's going to nominate Christian Wulff. The third candidate, Lukrezia Jochimsen, is from Die Linke, the left party in Germany, which is a mixture of a party. It's got radical leftists from the old West Germany, with a mixture of the rump of the Communist Party in Eastern Germany. So it's a really mixed bag of people. Of course, they can't vote for Joachim Gauck straight out, so they were a bit stuck because of his anti-communist credentials. He fought against people who are still in Die Linke, who are part of that party. So he's not going to garner their votes, but he's definitely could get good votes elsewhere. So anyway, she's no chance of winning, but it's just that she's interesting because she's going to be there. She's a career journalist who became a member of Parliament 2 federal elections ago. He says, yes, 2 federal. Anyway, so we've got this coming up. It's on the 30th of June. It'll be interesting to see what happens. You'll probably never hear of the federal president ever again, unless, like Köhler, he resigns early or something, or she resigns early. We don't know who it's going to be. Anyway, so that's the action. The interesting fly in the ointment is that there's the North Rhine-Westphalia had a state assembly election, and of course there was a change in the political makeup, and how that will affect the federal convention is interesting to see. It will be interesting to see what happens there, but I'll leave that, because that's still an ongoing process, for another video. Anyway, so take care. I will see you around, and have fun.